should be okay now. Yeah, it's the streaming software. Not sure what it's doing now. That's the Q8Pilot intro, I guess. Sorry about that, guys. Let's see here. All right, we're gonna go to the live scene, and that should do it. All right, now it should be all right. Hello there, Stan, and welcome to the stream. All right, so folks, here's what we're gonna be doing today. This is not intended to start any kind of war between, P3D fans, X-Plane fans, or Microsoft Flight Simulator fans. This is going to be a live stream where I show you Microsoft Flight Simulator, X-Plane, and P3D for the purposes of this live stream and for being as fair as possible in doing this live stream and really providing you with a fair comparison. We are going to be flying from Innsbruck Airport in all three simulators. I have the Orbex scenery installed for all three, Microsoft Flight Simulator, X-Plane, and P3D. We are going to be flying the Cessna 172, the default Cessna in both Microsoft Flight Simulator and X-Plane. Unfortunately, there isn't a default Cessna 172 in P3D, so we are going to be flying the A2A simulations Cessna 172, which is a study level aircraft. So it might, P3D might have an edge there in terms of the flight model, but just taking that into consideration, let's take a look first at Microsoft Flight Simulator. Without a doubt, stunning scenery. So in terms of the scenery, and by the way, we're going to be flying all three simulators in real weather. So as you can see, the scenery in Microsoft Flight Simulator is photoreal. So you've got satellite imagery. Everything looks exactly like real life. Well, almost. The houses are where they're supposed to be. The depiction of weather is fantastic in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Ooh, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. And of course, again, the simulation of water waves, everything is done to simulate as much as possible real life. And this is something that I really appreciate in Microsoft Flight Simulator. In terms of the visuals, hands down, #1 simulator today on the market, #1 flight simulator that is on the market. Hello there, Dougal, Vincent, Jay, Loading, Peter, Scott with us today as well. Hello, Scott. We've got, is it Roland? Hello there. I also have 3 installed P3D. Yeah, so in terms of the visuals, there is actually, it is a no contest. Seriously. It is by far the very best flight simulator in terms of the scenery. And by default, so you don't need to install anything. The reason I installed Innsbruck is I wanted to show you what you can do and what you can achieve with each simulator. And we're going to, of course, be taking a look at X-Plane later in this live stream. So we are at Innsbruck, and this is the default Cessna 172. We're going to start it from its cold and dark state. We're going to taxi to runway 26, and we are going to depart Innsbruck, make a few turns, come back and land. But first, let's appreciate a little bit the modeling and the reflections, the use of PBR. Everything really is done with a lot of finesse, with quality in mind, and really to bring us flight simulators closer to reality. And of course, you can see, again, the 3D objects. You can see the people, very realistic movement. Sometimes they do funny things, but most of the time, I think it looks pretty realistic. You can see all the airport clutter as well. Of course, this is Orbex scenery, but if you go to any airport, any default airport in Microsoft Flight Simulator, you'd still get the 3D objects, the 3D people with the animations, and of course the ground equipment as well is available. It's not it's not the best in my view in terms of its functionality, but in terms of its modeling, it's pretty good. It does the job. If you want to push back out of a position, then you can do that. By default, again, you don't need to install any plugins. All you need is Microsoft Flight Simulator. You need to purchase it, and you're good to go. Of course, you can purchase it on Steam. You can purchase it from the Microsoft Store, whichever way you prefer. It is available for you. Installation of Microsoft Flight Simulator is quite simple. You just run the executable and follow the process, and you're pretty much good to go. All right. We've got Q8, is it Scuderia? I'm not, he's saying, so let me just translate for you guys, and Q8, the chat is in English only, please. But what he's saying is, good evening, unfortunately, there is no simulation of sandstorms in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And yeah, so sandstorms are pretty famous here in Kuwait. We get them all the time. And if you walk outside, literally, you can get sand into your mouth. So yeah, it is not depicted in the sim. All right, so Microsoft Flight Simulator, of course, we're going to take a look at the menu. So I am going to provide you with a little bit of an overview and then give you my comments. Then we're going to move to the next simulator. So let's hop into the cockpit. This is the Cessna 172, the default one. This ships with Microsoft Flight Simulator. And if you get the premium version, I think it comes with it, and you get the G1000 as well. This is the non-G1000 version of the aircraft. So let's go ahead and hide the yoke and start it from its cold and dark state. And let's make sure the mixture is, again, by the way, the cockpit itself, the 3D modeling is second to none. Really, it's very realistic, and the reflection of lights on the objects in Microsoft Flight Simulator is simply outstanding. So again, no contest in terms of the lighting engine, in terms of the animations that you see on the ground. I think really is a simulation of what you'd see in real life, at least in very, very close proximity to what you see in real life. Right, so let's go ahead and turn on the battery. Battery is turned on. Alternator is turned on. We're going to turn on the beacon light as well. And we're going to make sure the fuel valve is on. The fuel is already on both tanks. We're going to set mixture to full rich, full forward on the throttle, and turn on the fuel pump. And then we're going to put this on lean and about 1/4 of an inch open. And let's see here. And we have a good start. Let's turn on our avionics.
Innsbruck ground, Cessna Alpha Sierra X-ray Golf Sierra requesting pushback.
No. We don't want the pushback, so we're going to cancel this. That's one thing. Again, by the way, the ATC in all three simulators is lacking, but it is the best in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Of course, you can hear again the voices of the ATC is pretty close to real humans. I mean, it is robotic, but it is a good attempt at simulating real human voices. It is acceptable in my view. It will help you, you can get clearance, taxi, takeoff, and then it will guide you throughout the flight while you're flying and vector you in to land at a runway. So in that respect, it is not perfect, but it is definitely the best available out of the box in Microsoft Flight Simulator. It is lacking in X-Plane to a very large extent, and of course in P3D it is the same. Again, this is the same. Again, it's an upgrade, if you will, over an overhaul over P3D or the ESP framework, but The ATC, again, in P3D, the built-in ATC is, I think, acceptable. It's not wow. It doesn't really do everything, but it's better than X-Plane still. So, and I'm going to keep making those comments, comparing the sims in terms of their features as we go along. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to taxi to the runway. We're going to make sure that the taxi lights and nav lights are turned on, and we're going to release the parking brake. I think it is released now. All right, let's go ahead and give it some power and head over to the runway. Now, in terms of performance, you know, P3D, Microsoft Flight Simulator requires a very hefty machine to run at, you know, at ultra settings or even high. And we're going to take a look at once we are close to the runway. So let's taxi to runway 26. You can see the reflection here? Not exactly. By the way, I've turned on the reflections in the settings. I'll show you my settings in a minute, but also they are available in the complete settings guide for P3D. So if you are interested, complete settings guide for Microsoft Flight Simulator. I do have the video. I've done it not too long ago. So if you are interested in my settings and a little bit of explanation as to how I achieved the results that I've achieved, then I highly recommend that you take a look at that video. All right, we're gonna come here to runway 26. Again, so far, smooth experience. We had one jitter as I started, you know, moving out of the position or parking position. But other than that, I think it's pretty much smooth. You know, good performance. Let's turn the strobe lights on, landing lights. Let's turn off the taxi lights. All right, I'm going to take questions, guys. I just want to really focus on giving you as much information as possible, and then I'm going to get to the question Q&A session, if you will, after we're done with each simulator. And I do want to thank everyone who's with us on the stream, and I want to thank the moderators as well for their help and support. All right, we're lining up runway 26. Now, one of the things you will like and appreciate in Microsoft Flight Simulator and in X-Plane is the sloped runways. So this is something I really appreciate a lot because that's how things are in real life. In real life, you will see sloped runways. In P3D, it is not. I'm not sure if they did it in 5.2, but as far as I can see so far, no, we haven't seen anything in regards to sloped runways. At least I haven't seen it. So again, if you look at the weather, this is real weather. This is the current real weather at Innsbruck, and we are now going to set the mixture to full rich, and we are going to set flaps for takeoff. Ooh, what happened here? I guess the RPM was too low. All right, that's better. And we're gonna bring the yoke. All right, so full left, full right, full up, full down. And by the way, the sounds, even this is the default system, but the sounds were recorded from the real aircraft. And you can see the lights here. You can see the beacon. You can see the reflection of the light here. Again, I think it's all right. Yeah, I think that's how it actually looks in real life. But the engine sounds are definitely recorded from the real aircraft, and they sound just phenomenal, really. You can see also the heat flare coming from the exhaust there. You can see the vibration on the wings here as we stand still here on runway 26. Fine attention to details, really, in terms of how the aircraft actually behaves in Microsoft Flight Simulator. We'll see similar things maybe in P3D and X-Plane, but we'll save that for later when we are in those simulators. All right, So let's go ahead and give it full power. As the parking brake is set, that's perfectly fine. Let's make sure the altimeter is set. And we're going to try to keep the aircraft on the center line. Now, this is, by the way, before doing this video, this live stream, I've done some studying of the Cessna 172 in terms of the visuals, and it looks fantastic. This model is just really like the real aircraft. All right, we're coming up to 60 knots. 60 knots and rotate. And as you can see, it's a smooth takeoff out of Innsbruck. Controlling the views is quite simple in Microsoft Flight Simulator. They have the presets for you by default to make things easy for you. There we go. I think that's a better view. Just really lovely sky colors. The clouds are very realistic indeed. I mean, they look very real to me. And that's, I think, one area where Microsoft Flight Simulator again excels in the depiction of meteorological data. That includes everything, you know, humidity, clouds, rain, and I will use some presets here to show you guys what really the sim can do. But so far, I think the aircraft flies pretty well. And it is pretty fluid as well. We're going to make a left turn here, and we're going to head back to Innsbruck and land the aircraft. Here is an external view. All right, so what does things look like during nighttime in Microsoft Flight Simulator? Let's go here, and we are, and there you have it. That's nighttime in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Again, you can see the sky color, beautiful sky colors, beautiful lighting all around. Again, the reflection, the illumination of the lights is done very, very well. I absolutely adore the night lighting in Microsoft Flight Simulator. You can see now the runway lights I'm not too sure about. I've had people complain about the runway lights being too bright. It doesn't bother me. I think it looks pretty good. And you can see things far in the distance. Again, looks pretty good. That's, by the way, if we turn it all the way down there, and that's completely just pitch dark nighttime, and you can see all the lights illuminating the city of Innsbruck in Austria. All right, let's go to live. So this is the current time in Innsbruck, and this is what things look like at the moment. One of the nice things in Microsoft Flight Simulator is you are able to change the weather presets, so you can experiment with these. For example, let's go to scattered clouds, and you can see now things have changed here. Let's switch to external view. And let's go to broken clouds. And maybe high clouds as well. And we'll go back to live weather. So as you can see, lots of features. And by the way, you get this toolbar. Now, for me, I don't necessarily like this toolbar. I don't like the fact that it's there, and the minute you move the mouse, you get this little arrow there. So I would love to actually have this come only when you hover, for example, at this part of the screen. Then it would be a lot more, friendly. So now the minute you move the mouse, you get this thing here, which kind of bothers me. But, it's very functional. You have access to You know, you've got access to you can customize this toolbar if you want. You've got the weather presets. You've got the VFR map, which is accessible also through the letter V on your keyboard. You've got your nav log, your weight and balance, AI control, so you can actually have your co-pilot fly the aircraft for you, and currently he's assisting with the checklist and the radio comms. Again, you've got, you know, abiding your controls, and it would automatically detect the controls, and we'll get to that in a minute, but I've had actually no issues with any of my flight controls. I've had a slight issue with my Redbird rudder pedals. The toe brakes won't work in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but other than that, everything was pretty cool. Everything worked immediately. Just plug and play, really. No issues there whatsoever. We've got a new subscriber to the channel. Welcome, my friend. All right, we're going to head back over to Innsbruck and land the aircraft. So we're going to ease off on the power here. And we're going to make it back to Innsbruck and land the aircraft. And then I'm going to show you a few more features. And then we're going to head over to the main menu to take a look at what Microsoft offers. Now, for somebody who is starting with flight simulation, I think Microsoft Flight Simulator is a breeze to set up. You don't really need to worry about downloading add-ons, but if you do want to download add-ons, then there is a ton at flightsim.io, I believe, the site. It's a pretty famous site. I'll link it in the description once the stream is over, and it's definitely there's a ton of add-ons for Microsoft Flight Simulator, just like there is, by the way, for X-Plane and P3D. And the nice thing about Microsoft Flight Simulator and P3D is that a lot of the add-ons are free of charge, so you don't really have to pay anything for them. Of course, there is payware add-ons as well, but there is an abundance of freeware for you to enjoy. All right, we are heading back to Innsbruck Airport to land. And then we're going to take a look at a few more things, and of course I'm going to answer some of the questions. I'll probably have to go and look back at the chat, but overall flying the Cessna is enjoyable. The default Cessna, I think this is as well as the Cessna 152 are the ones I enjoy the most in Microsoft Flight Simulator as far as the default aircraft go. I do, of course, I've done a first impressions video, the DC-6 by PMDG, and I absolutely adore the DC-6. Again, PMDG has done a wonderful job, and that's another thing that gives advantage, I think, to Microsoft Flight Simulator is that PMDG is creating exclusively for this sim. We are about to land at runway 26 here at Innsbruck, and if you take a note on to our left, you can see just the beautiful custom buildings and all the houses, and just look at that. That looks absolutely amazing, and this is pretty much what you'd see in real life, by the way. So really fantastic simulator in terms of the 3D modeling and you know, the depiction of the world in general is done quite well. We are a bit too fast here, so let's reduce our speed. All right, flaps. There's a little bit of crosswind here as we come into land. And again, we're flying in real weather. And let's go flaps. Runway 26, you can see there is a crosswind here, and touchdown. Ooh. Whoa. Wow. Now that is very unrealistic. And I'm not sure why it's done that. Not sure what happened. Let's take a look. What is that? I have no clue. Let's see if we can move the aircraft. Doesn't look like we can do anything. It's just stuck. All right, so there's a bit of realism for you there. All right, there we go. Okay, so yeah, I'm not sure what it's doing, but wait. Let me just. All right. So if we look here at the grass, you guys see that? I mean, that is just really fantastic. This is very, very realistic in my view, or as realistic as possible in a flight simulator. Again, you can see the light, the landing light here, and how it illuminates the ground. Beautiful lighting in Microsoft Flight Simulator. All right, so another thing I wanted to show you guys is I want to go here to the rain, and we're going to select rain. And when we do select rain, and let's see here. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. There's definitely no rain. There is slight rain, I guess. All right, let's try. Let's see, storm. All right. Now, when I selected the storm preset, you can see the movement of the grass here. Again, very, very realistic. Or not, maybe not very realistic, but at least it gives you the feel, the look and feel of being in a storm. And you can see also the skies there, and you can see the formation of the clouds. Really, a really nice depiction of the world and all the different environmental effects that you would expect to see in a flight simulator. It just really immerses you in the experience and makes the flying very enjoyable. All right, so what we're going to do now is we are going to head to the menu. Now, from by the way, while you're in flight, you've got your general options, assistance options, and control options. Those are accessible from the main menu as well. Now, the general options would take you to your graphics, and I guess you guys are interested in seeing what I've got here. So you've got the I've got everything pretty much on Ultra, but let me just very quickly go through this. I've turned VSync on, 60 FPS as the frame rate limit. I've got rendering scaling at 100, 150 for terrain, anti-aliasing, TAA. All of these are Ultra. Objects level of detail 200, and then I've got volumetric clouds, texture resolution on Ultra, 16 for anisotropic filtering, texture super sampling 4, texture thickness Ultra, water waves high, and then shadow maps are set to 1536, terrain shadows 512, the rest are on Ultra, and I have bloom turned off, depth of field on Ultra, and the rest of these are off, glass cockpit refresh rate on low. Another thing that is worthwhile mentioning while we're here is on the traffic. I have used generic plane models for AI and multiplayer turned on. This saves considerably CPU power. One more thing I want to show you before we head to the main menu is the performance. So if we look here at the performance, I am overclocking the CPU to 5 gigahertz. Utilization is about 20-30% or so, so that's not bad. But we can see that only one core is being utilized by the sim, and it's this one here, CPU 19, right? So this is not a multi-core simulator as of yet, and hopefully once DirectX 12 is usable, then you know we'll have all cores utilized in the flight sim. All right, says, hey Q8, have you ever done any MSFS in VR? I've done X-Plane in VR, and it's fantastic. I've done DCS in VR. It is fantastic, but unfortunately, due to health reasons, I'm unable to to continue to use VR. If we look at the GPU, folks, we can see the GPU temperature is 77 Celsius, which is okay. Up to 84, you're good. You can see the utilization is very high, which is very good indication that Microsoft Flight Simulator really harnesses the power of your graphics card. So that's a little bit of geeky stuff for you guys. Let's head over now to the main menu. All right, so while we speak about the user interface, Microsoft Flight Simulator user interface, in my view, is not very user-friendly, okay? Now, things are laid out in a user-friendly manner, so everything is readable, but just the way you go about doing things is not exactly straightforward, in my view. I'd like the fact that everything is visual, so once you go to the world map to create your flight, everything is visual. You are able to create your departure and arrival airports. It would automatically select your SIDS and stars. For instance, if we go to Norfolk in Virginia and we select, for example, let's see here. Anyway, this one here. All right, so somewhere in Brazil. You can select the type of aircraft, and then you would select, IFR or VFR. And as you can see, it automatically selects the SIDS and the stars and all the runways for you. And you can see the entire trip here. You can also look at the nav logs here. And you can see the altitude and the different waypoint in your journey from departure to arrival. Another thing that you'll find is your profile, and this is, I've done 91 hours of Microsoft Flight Simulator where you have access to your profile, the content manager, your logbook, and the hangar. The hangar is a nice place to look at aircraft, and you can switch in different views. I mean, just really spectacular in terms of the 3D modeling and the realism in terms of the visuals. Very, very fine visuals in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And of course, you can view the aircraft from the aircraft interior as well from within the hangar. The marketplace is, I think it's a nice addition, and I like the fact that it is integrated with the sim. I think this is a brilliant idea where add-on developers are able to publish their work here on the Microsoft Store, and you can buy it and it would automatically download and install, and then it's ready for use. I think this is brilliant. I think it is similar to the Orbx concept where all their scenery is one place, and third-party developers are now adding their add-ons into Orbx. So this is something I like. I think for beginners this is perfect because they don't have to worry about installing software or installing scenery or installing their favorite aircraft. If it's available in the marketplace, after purchase immediately you can download it. It will be automatically installed and configured for use. And for beginners, this is an absolutely great idea. Now the options, again, as I've said, they're accessible from the main menu, and you can go from the general options to the assistance options, again, where you can select the kind of realism, if you will. So the aircraft systems here, auto mixture, failure and damage. I've disabled, by the way, crash damage so that it's okay to collide with other aircraft. But everything else is enabled or turned on. So this is pretty much the assistance options. Now the control options is again, it's not immediate how things work, so it takes a little bit of learning, and this is where I think things are not very user-friendly. So for example, if we go to the Alpha Flight controls, it's a nice addition that they have this. So they show you, this is, by the way, what I have right now. So they show you kind of the buttons here, but if you move any of the buttons, you don't really see anything here. So there is no visual cue to let you know which control is being moved, but you have the numbers there. Setting this up is, I really haven't touched anything. Everything just works by default. I didn't have to do anything except change the buttons to do what I like them to do. Then you've got the response curves similar to X-plane, and this is where you set up your sensitivity, dead zone, extremely dead zone, extremity dead zone, and reactivity. So you can set all of this here to your liking to make it, it is very touchy. So the controls in Microsoft Flight Simulator are very touchy. So it takes a little bit of time to set things where, you're comfortable with. So that's in terms of the control, but everything you need is there. You can see that all my flight equipment is correctly identified here, and you can very easily create profiles, and there's a preset manager as well here for you. Of course, you can click here and see who's online, who's disconnected. That's another big thing in Microsoft Flight Simulator, which is the multiplayer. The multiplayer in Microsoft Flight Simulator is built in, and it is absolutely fabulous. It is so much fun to do group flights and to fly with other flight simmers out there. There's different servers that you can log into, but it's definitely a lot of fun to do it. And I think that is probably the biggest advantage that Microsoft Flight Simulator has over P3D and X-plane. Of course, there are alternatives, but here we're talking about built-in capability. And when it comes to built-in capability, I think Microsoft Flight Simulator offers the most in terms of built-in capability. So value for money, it's probably the best out there for beginners. Again, if you are just wanting to have fun, fly around with people, not worry too much about flight model and the flight physics, this is definitely the simulator for you. All right, so this is what I wanted to cover. I will take a few questions now. Let's see, be prepared for long loading first time. Yes, that is right. I love X-plane, but it looks so dated now. It can look very dated. I agree with you there. It's funny, ever since I have MSFS, I've tried X-plane one more time and then rushed back to MSFS. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people who probably share that, and I think it's for the sheer beauty of the scenery in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And to be very frank with you guys, I've learned a few things about a few countries from Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I've compared real world footage with what I see. I know my family is currently in Newcastle, and I've showed them a Newcastle airport in the sim, and my kids actually tell me that it looks exactly like the real airport in real life. So yeah, definitely. Of course, you've got more fun things to do with Microsoft Flight Simulator. You've got the flight training course, you've got the activities, the challenges, news, feedback, and support. So there's a ton of things in terms of fun that you can do with Microsoft Flight Simulator. All in all, for beginners, for someone who wants to have fun and not worry too much about flight physics, flight modeling, this is definitely the flight simulator for you. All right. I cannot even play any of the flight simulator because there keeps being a side-by-side error. We've got Salty Gamer. Are we all going to fly together? We are definitely going to fly in Microsoft Flight Simulator very soon. I will be announcing the details on my Discord, and I might just invite one of the famous guys as well to fly with us and make it more interesting, get their insight. Eric says, hello Q8, thank you for your videos. What is your thought on real pilots? Says that flight model on the default C172 and C152 is better than X-plane 11. Well, I don't know. I mean, if a real pilot says that, I mean, he's definitely entitled to his own opinion. But I've heard the same from other people as well, that says that the flight model of the Cessna 152, I don't know about the 172, but the 152 is spot on in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Is it better than X-plane? That, of course, I personally cannot vouch for, and I cannot really comment on it because I don't know. What we're going to do now is we are going to quit to desktop, and I'm going to start Explain. So I'm going to put the Be Right Back screen, and I'll be with you guys shortly. All right, folks, we are back in Explain, and we are going to load up the default Cessna 172, and we are going to go to Innsbruck. I just didn't want to keep you guys waiting too long. So let's see here. Yeah, we'll put the aircraft there. That's fine. Confirm. And I need to bring up Active Sky. XP. You know what? We're not going to do that. We're going to use the default, the built-in weather, just like we did in Microsoft Flight Simulator, just again to compare it. And by the way, you can do this stuff in Microsoft Flight Simulator as well, so you can really have granular weather the way you like it. All right, so it's set here, and let's start the flight. Should take just a few moments here. I'll take a few questions. Carl Childers, hello there, my friend, and welcome. I do like Explain as well the most at the moment. It is by far, in my view at least, the most enjoyable, just considering performance, considering the flight model, the feel of the aircraft up in the air feels very realistic. And I've had the pleasure of chartering a Cessna 172, 152, and a Piper 28 in real life. And I've flown those aircraft, and I was actually in the pilot seat flying the aircraft. And I tell you, Explain to me feels the most realistic, as opposed to P3D and Microsoft Flight Simulator. All right. So, folks, we are now in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And this is the default Cessna 172. But first, I think I'm going to turn off the... Here you can... This is XP Realistic. See, windshield, wind ambience. Yeah, let's turn that off. All right, that's much better. All right, so first, let's take a look here at the scenery. And again, as I've said, we are going to compare the sims with the Innsbruck scenery by Orbex. So this is the Innsbruck scenery by Orbex for Explain 11. And as you can see, it is not as, it is not as impeccable as what we've seen in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but it looks pretty good. Again, photoreal scenery. The depiction of the world is done quite well. You can see the houses and the trees, and the airport itself, I think, looks pretty good. Again, a job very well done by Orbex. But you can see also there is a lot of limitations in terms of the 3D modeling. So these cars, while they definitely look like cars and they are pretty well modeled, they don't look as realistic as the ones that we've seen in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And that's, of course, due to the, the limitations of Explain. in terms of the look and feel. Still, it does look good. I mean, it doesn't look bad. It looks pretty good. I think it is where you can enjoy the sim. So you can definitely enjoy the simulator with scenery looking like that. It's not bad in my view. Now, one of the biggest drawbacks in X-Plane, excuse me, is the depiction of meteorological data. The weather needs an overhaul. That's just pure and simple. The weather, to me, doesn't work visually. Now, in terms of the actual weather, so the wind direction and how the wind actually affects the aircraft, it is by far the most advanced because of blade element theory. So blade element theory actually simulates the, how the air actually moves on the airfoil. And it is not a approximate. Well, it is an approximation, but it's a very close one. But it works a lot better than lookup tables. The methodology of the ESB framework used by Microsoft Flight Simulator, where there are hundreds of points on the wing, and based on the wind, it would go and look up in that table what that wind should do to that part of the wing, and then it simulates it in the sim. So in terms of the visuals, I think it looks pretty good. It's not bad. It's definitely not Microsoft Flight Simulator, but it's pretty good. Now, the 3D objects are static in X-Plane, and you can see that they're not very well modeled, not because the 3D graphic designer isn't skilled, but I think it's due to the limitation of the sim. I've seen better models, by the way, than these. So these are okay, but yeah, the animations in X-Plane are definitely lacking. Looking at this Cessna 172, this is, by the way, the default Cessna 172 that ships with X-Plane, so you get it by default. It looks pretty good in terms of the texture work. The use of PBR, and it looks good for an aircraft that comes by default with the sim. Again, it is not at par visually with what we've seen in Microsoft Flight Simulator. This is definitely a step down in terms of the look and feel. It still looks pretty much like a Cessna 172, but nowhere near the realism that you see in terms of the visuals in P3D, in Microsoft Flight Simulator. We'll take a look at P3D in a moment, and we'll compare the two. So definitely, of course, I do have add-ons. I have XP Realistic. I have a lot of different things here to give this bluish color. So again, with add-ons, you can enhance the look and feel of X-Plane, but it's going to take a little bit of money to do that. So again, I think there's an edge there when it comes to the budget. I think Microsoft Flight Simulator wins slightly, because out of the box, if you're on a budget and you purchase X-Plane and you purchase Microsoft Flight Simulator or P3D, looking at what you need to do to improve the sim to where you think, where you feel it is acceptable and you feel that it's realistic enough for you to enjoy it, I think you need to spend a considerable amount of money with X-Plane and P3D, and not so much with Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, I've seen a lot of the airports, and some of them are quite expensive, so it adds up. But all in all, I think Microsoft Flight Simulator offers better value for the buck. That's my personal opinion, of course. You don't have to agree with me, but that's my personal view. All right, so we are in the default Cessna 172 in X-Plane now, and we are going to do exactly the same thing. We are going to come here, and let's make sure this is all turned off. And we're going to turn on the beacon, and battery and alternator are turned on. I need to mute my mobile. All right, so that's turned on. And next, the fuel selector on both tanks. The fuel valve is already open, and we're going to go mixture full rich, and the throttle full forward, and we're going to turn on the fuel pump, and we can see the fuel flow there. That's good enough. And mixture back, doesn't want to use the, okay, well that's fine. We'll just do it that way. And then 1/4 of an inch open, and let's see here. All right. Right, it says the directional gyro is not aligned with the magnetic north. Adjust it, that's perfectly okay. Let's see here. All right, so we have a good start now, and the sounds are acceptable. By the way, this head shake that you see, that's again an add-on. Unfortunately, there isn't an add-on that mimics this behavior in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I'm sure something is being cooked up by one of the developers. I'm just sure of it. But there are also add-ons to add more realism to this default Cessna, which is the SimCoders Reality Expansion Pack. And I've done multiple videos on the Reality Expansion Pack. But as it is now, this is what you get. We can turn off, you know, XP Realistic, but I'm just going to leave it on. That's fine. Again, I want to be able to show you guys what you can do with this simulator. What is the type of experience that you can have, and of course, it doesn't come cheap. So when we flew in Microsoft Flight Simulator earlier in the stream, you know, you saw the movement, you saw the vibrations, not exactly realistic from the inside, but from the outside, definitely the hovering of the plane and the vibration of the aircraft wings when we were at the runway is very realistic. Let's see if we have the same here. As you can see, the aircraft is standstill. There is no movement of the wings, no vibrations. The rotating beacon is a lot better in this Cessna than the one in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I think this one is more realistic than the one in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So let's turn on the avionics again. F-mod sounds are acceptable, but the sounds of the aircraft, of course, are not realistic. They're not the real sounds of a Cessna 172. They might have recorded this from the real aircraft, I'm not sure, but definitely the sounds in Microsoft Flight Simulator are far better. They're far superior than it is in X-Plane. All right, we're gonna bring up the taxi light and nav lights. And what else we need to do? We are good. Let's go ahead and taxi to the runway. All right, parking brake released. Now, the nice thing about I can use the toe brakes in X-Plane. I can do it in P3D or Microsoft Flight Simulator. I think it just doesn't like my J-rudder. Again, very smooth experience. One of the things I really love about X-Plane is how smooth the sim is. And of course, if you get, and again, any jitters, anything like that, it's probably due to the software and not the actual sim. X-Plane will catch up. Yeah. So the latest news is that they're implementing a new lighting engine, and I've seen a trailer of Laminar Research showing off the new lighting engine, which significantly improves things. You know, the current look and feel is kind of washed out a little bit. So that's definitely a step in the right direction, but they have, you know, Microsoft Flight Simulator is leap years ahead in terms of lighting, in terms of the weather depiction, but not the flight model. So let's come over here now, and strobes are on, taxi off, and landing lights is turned on. And we're going to do exactly what we've done in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Here's the turn. Now, what do you guys think? I mean, this looks fantastic, doesn't it? Looks pretty good. Again, there's this funny looking trees here. At this time of day, they kind of look funny. I'm not sure what this is, but yeah, it looks washed out somehow. All right, let's go ahead and set the mixture to full rich, and let's give it full power. Again, the vibrations are not by default, so they are part of XP Realistic. And we are departing runway 26 here at Innsbruck. And we're going to rotate at 60 knots. Rotate. I absolutely adore the smoothness of X-Plane. You see the wind just pushed me to the side. There, you can see the wind effect on the aircraft, and that is just very realistic. All right, we're gonna keep climbing here at about 70 knots. Oh, look at that. And that is the type of stuff that I keep talking about that makes X-Plane, at least for myself, very enjoyable. Now, installing scenery for X-Plane isn't exactly a straightforward thing for a lot of people. Right, that's about right. And again, I'm trying to fly level, and you can see how the wind keeps pushing the aircraft, and that is very characteristics of how the Cessna behaves up in the air. At least from my experience in real life, in a Cessna, you know, you'd get that. I remember the instructor used to tell me, just let it go. So let it do the turn, let the wind push the aircraft a bit, and then you set the aircraft back on your heading and course. You don't want to fight with the wind. That was the instructor's, you know, advice to me is, do not fight the wind. Let it do what it wants to do, and then correct the aircraft. So we're going to make the same left turn that we've done in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Head back over to the airport and land. Here's a look at the external view. One of the things you can do in Microsoft Flight Simulator is a flyby. And you can do this in X-Plane, fortunately. Overall, the camera system in X-Plane is far more advanced than it is in Microsoft Flight Simulator and P3D for that matter. In my view, it is the best, really, built-in camera system. Of course, you can use X camera, and there are other add-ons that you can use to enhance your experience. But out of the box, the X-Plane camera, you know, you've got your shift 4, 3, 2, 1, 5. A lot of different views that you can cycle through, and then you can, the movement inside the cockpit, just use the arrow keys with your mouse to move around. Very easy. To really look around in X-Plane as opposed to Microsoft Flight Simulator and P3D. And by the way, for P3D, we are going to be using Chase Plane because it just makes my life easier. But yeah, definitely the camera system in X-Plane is a lot better. I'll tell you guys, the aircraft handling feels more real in X-Plane. You may or may not agree with me, of course, and of course everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but that's what I feel based on my real life experience with the Cessna 172. Again, look at this scenery by Orbex. Beautiful scenery. It is quite immersive. 3D modeling is done quite well on the houses there. And again, I can feel the wind just pushing the aircraft back and forth. All right, let me just adjust this view here a bit. Let me... Unable to find... All right. There we go. All right, so as you can see, the aircraft handles pretty well. This is again the default Cessna 172 in X-plane. Let's see where we are, and that's the runway right there, runway 26. Again, I'm using X-Vision, by the way, in this video. So in order to get this look, you need to spend a little bit of money, whereas in Microsoft Flight Simulator, you don't. Sounds definitely a lot better. I like the Doppler effect, though, in X-Plane when you do a flyby. And, yeah, obviously the scenery looks fantastic. Again, the Orbex scenery looks very good. Now, for the stream, I've toned down my object settings just to kind of save on FPS, because the streaming software takes a little bit of you know, compute power. So yeah, all right, we're gonna go ahead and I'll show you, of course, my X-Plane settings in a minute. But overall, brilliant experience flying in X-Plane. Very smooth, very fluid. And it's kind of set and forget in terms of the settings. You don't really have to fiddle around with it. Let's see now what happens here as we come into land. Let's see here. Alright, let's do flaps. Probably wasn't a safe speed to lower the flaps, but nonetheless. Alright, so again, the same weather, real weather, same time of day, and we're going to take a look at X-Plane during nighttime as well in just a minute. Look at that, just really feels a lot. All right, so welcome back to Innsbruck, and it was definitely an equally enjoyable flight around Innsbruck. Now, the ground handling of the aircraft in X-Plane, I find it to be more tolerating and probably more realistic. But of course, again, that's the way I feel about the ground handling in X-Plane. It doesn't do the crazy things that, you know, Microsoft Flight Simulator often does. And the landing appears to be a lot more clean when you come to land, and you will see this, you will know what I'm talking about if you've tried to land the Airbus A320 in Microsoft Flight Simulator, as opposed to, for example, landing the TOLUS or the Flight Factor A320 in X-Plane. Definitely you will see considerable difference in the way the aircraft handles. And it is almost unrealistic the way the Airbus lands in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and all the bumps and the bounces that it does. So this is probably where X-Plane excels. The flight model, the physics, how really environmental conditions affect the aircraft's movement and behavior, I think is where X-Plane really excels. Enjoyable flight, enjoyable simulator, looks pretty good. I can see the wind is pushing me to the left, so I'm using a bit of rudder here to keep the aircraft, well, I'm trying to keep it on the center line. Alright, let's see here. We're going to bring the aircraft to a complete stop, and then we're going to try it. Now, in terms of weather, you can definitely set the weather just like we did in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but it takes a little bit of work to do it in X-Plane. And what I mean by work is that you always need to go to the, you know, AKA weather director in X-Plane to set the weather. There are a few presets, by the way, and I'll show, but they're not accessible from within the flight while you're in live flight, but they're available in the menu. So we're going to take a look at that in just a moment. All right, let's bring the aircraft to a complete stop. And parking brake is set. All right, let's kill. First, we're going to turn off the avionics, and we're going to turn off the beacon light, landing lights, strobes, nav lights, and then we can kill the fuel and turn off the battery master and alternator, and we can take the key out. All right, so now we are going to take a look at X-Plane 11 during nighttime. Again, by the way, the water is done okay, but not very realistic in my view. But let's go ahead and let's change time. All right, so I am just going to come here and change this to, there you go. Now that is nighttime in X-Plane. Now let me tell you guys one thing. If you noticed when we looked at the nighttime in Microsoft Flight Simulator, the sky remained to be illuminated even when it was supposed to be pitch dark like it is now. And this, in my view, is more realistic, because normally when you go out at night and it's pitch black, you know, midnight, that's how it looks. It actually looks pitch black. I forget the clouds, but the skies look pitch black, and you get all the illumination from, you know, the lights down here. Now we can slightly change the time, and you can see again that X-Plane looks absolutely beautiful minus the clouds. The clouds are just terrible in X-Plane. Even with those add-on clouds, I mean, they don't look realistic at all. But overall, the sky colors look fantastic. The night lighting looks very good. Again, the lights are modded here. So, and of course, if you want my lights, you can find them by typing, you know, exclamation lights, and it will provide you with a link to it. So yeah, all in all, I think it looks okay. You know, not too bad. You can still enjoy X-Plane with add-ons. Again, you need to get several add-ons to improve the overall look and feel, the sky colors, but the flight model and the flight physics are superb in X-Plane, both on the ground and up in the air. Right, let's take a look now at the menu. So we are gonna go to the main menu. Now from the main menu, we can go to, let's see, all right. Flight. You know, I don't think I've ever ended a flight and not exited X-Plane. So let's see, file, main menu, and then we can quit. Wow, strange. All right, well, all the menus are available here. Ooh, what did I do? There we go. All right, so the menu in X-Plane is actually, in my view, it is very well done. And it's done with a lot of thought and really having the user in mind. Now it is not as graphical or, you know, and colorful as it is in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but I think it's very functional and it's very easy to understand. And everything, you've got everything in, you know, in one place. You know, you've got this general where you set the languages, and I'm not sure why they've got, again, the flight model and, you know, some of the realism settings here. I would move it probably, I mean, fine, general tab is fine, but I would move it somewhere else where it has to do with the actual flight sounds. This is where you configure your sounds. Graphics, again, very simple. There aren't really that many things to do, so it doesn't really give you as much granularity as Microsoft Flight Simulator does. But this is, by the way, normally is a number of world objects is normally on very high but I left it at high for the stream, as you know, I tend to get sometimes lower frames with that during streams, so I keep it there. You know, you've got your network. I shouldn't be showing that, but anyway, joystick. Again, one of the things I like in Microsoft Flight Simulator, you know, is when you hover over a button here, it will highlight it here. You see this? See that? And that's really nice, and it really helps you to configure the control with ease and know exactly what is you know, what is happening there. Very easy to use, straightforward. And if you go, for example, to, you know, here are all my flight controls. Again, the Redbird Alloy RD1. Again, here if I move the rudder, you know, very, very easy. All the controls were detectable. Just the minute I plugged in the USB cable, everything worked without hitch. So the same thing goes for my Alpha Flight controls. Again, you can see the movement there, and you can add the response curve here. I think this makes a lot more sense than Microsoft Flight Simulator, the way they have sensitivity here, and they've got, you know, the select the controls up there, and then the sensitivity is there. Here, you can add the response curve to each. You can add it to roll. You can add it to pitch. So very granular again, very well done. And to add it, you know, you simply come here and you use your mouse to set your response curve. So very user-friendly. It takes a little bit of time to get used to it, but in my view, it's very it's very user-friendly. Maybe it's because I'm used to it. Maybe because I've been using X-Plane for, you know, ages now, since X-Plane 10.2 is when I started using X-Plane. So it's been a very long time. So maybe this is just, you know, it feels natural to me. And of course it's understood, but I might have my own bias for the user interface of X-Plane, but in all honesty, I think it's very well made. Very intuitive, very easy, you know, very simple. You don't really have to go through menus and windows and exits. Everything is laid out here, you know, straight right there, and that's it. You're good to go. You can configure everything, of course. Very good support for VR in X-Plane, and I tell you, this sim looks fantastic, just like DCS and P3D. I've tried them all in VR, with the exception of Microsoft Flight Simulator, so I can't comment there. So in terms of the features, Microsoft Flight Simulator is probably easier to configure, but when it comes to add-ons, probably Microsoft Flight Simulator is easier because of the built-in marketplace where you can go and purchase the add-ons. In X-Plane, most of the sceneries do not come with an executable. So there's no installer. You have to install them and place the files in your custom scenery, and then you have to worry about the order of the scenery in your custom scenery, the scenery.ini file. So a lot of things to worry about. If you are a beginner, it can really be very daunting setting up X-Plane to the way you like. But of course, you have the Q8Pilot channel, which you can always turn to, and hopefully you'll find a tutorial that will help you set it up just the way you like. If you don't, please always, you can send me a message on Discord or reach out by email or Instagram, whichever way you like, and I will try to help you when I have time. All right, so this is for you guys, X-Plane, and I think X-Plane is probably geared towards more serious flight simmers or people who want to train real-world pilots who want to train on real aircraft. And by account of real-world pilots, X-Plane is very well suited for real flight training. There is a commercial version, by the way, of X-Plane that you can purchase, and I think they already purchased it for flight training. So some of the companies that do flight training actually use X-Plane as an engine to train real-world pilots, and they use it for GA aircraft, for airliners, you name it. I have, information from real-world pilots that actually use it for training. Now, one interesting fact is my uncle was a PPL, and he actually flew the Cessna 172 for many, many years back in the US. And when he tried X-Plane and P3D, he could not stand P3D. And he said X-Plane is very realistic, and it exactly mimics what he used to experience in real life flying a Cessna 172. So, with that, folks, I am going to move on now to P3D. So, just give me a second to exit X-Plane, and then I'll head back here, and let's see here. So I'm going to go to the be right back screen and start P3D, and I'll see you guys in just a bit. All right. Alexander Drone, welcome to the Q8Pilot channel, my friend. I'm just loading up P3D, and I will be right with you guys. X-Plane is definitely for serious stuff. Microsoft Flight Simulator for the eye candy and relaxing fun. I could not have said it better. Absolutely, Rick. That is absolutely my take on the two sims. All right, I've got P3D here. Let me just change this here, 172. Let's see, I think this one. Change the airport. All right. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, and we are loading P3D now. Did Uncle Q8 ever try the A2A Cessna? No, I don't think that he did, but he tried the default Cessna 172 in X-Plane. And you can see now P3D is loading. Now, by the way, in terms of loading time, I found X-Plane to be the fastest of the three simulators to load. It is the one with least crashes, least errors. Microsoft Flight Simulator after the last update hasn't crashed at all. So it is very stable. But P3D, by the way, sorry guys, I forgot to show you the performance of the CPU and GPU with Microsoft Flight Simulator. Sorry, with X-Plane. But we'll do it for P3D, and maybe I'll cover it in another video. All right, so we are now, ladies and gentlemen, in P3D. We are in a cold and dark state in the Cessna 172 by A2A Simulations, one of my absolute favorite aircraft for P3D. This is P3D version 5.2, and as you can see, it actually looks pretty good. But we're going to start here on the runway just in the interest of time. We are going to start the aircraft from its cold and dark state. But first, let's take a look at P3D. Let's see here. Right. So now that we are at Innsbruck, and we can, let's see here, let's go up there, and you can see again that the scenery by Orbex is done very, very well for P3D. Just like X-Plane, I think it is at par with X-Plane, but I would tell you what makes a huge difference between P3D and X-Plane in terms of the visuals is the trees. So you can see the 3D trees are much better. You can see that the weather depiction is a meteorological depiction is much better. You can see the clouds are volumetric clouds. They're not as good as Microsoft Flight Simulator in my view, but they are still pretty good. Well, it looks like... All right, there we go. I think the streaming software has stopped for a while there. Sorry about that. All right, here we go. All right, let's make our turn, head back over to the airport. Again, P3D offers some fantastic add-ons to really provide an immersive experience. And this is probably a good testimony of, you know, what P3D can offers. The A2A simulations, Cessna 172. I love their products. All of their products are, again, very well thought of and of the highest quality, really. Right, here's the runway. Very fluid, very smooth. Again, you can see the buildings and the trees. Everything looks pretty good. The overall atmospheric representation in P3D 5.2 is not bad. It's getting there for sure. We're too fast. And too high. Again, we can still see the crosswind there, just like we witnessed it in Microsoft Flight Simulator and X-Plane. It's going to be a floater, guys. Yeah, we came in too fast. All right, there we go. Again, handling on the ground in P3D is, in my view, a lot better than Microsoft Flight Simulator, but probably at par with X-Plane, at least in this aircraft. Hey, Simon. Yeah. Yeah, that happens. The reason why is there wasn't sufficient distance between the turn and the runway. And really what I wanted to show you guys here is what the sim does and how the aircraft handles. And I think, guys, P3D 5.2 with, you know, with add-ons looks okay. It looks pretty good. I mean, just look at the scene. You can see all the trees But again, this is all Orbex. Again, Orbex trees, HD, you know, the Orbex scenery. And by the way, in X-Plane as well, you have Ortho 4XP. You can download real, you know, satellite imagery and really just fly in a completely realistic world for free. You can definitely achieve that. And when coupled, you know, free Ortho 4XP with XP Realistic, with X-Vision, then it creates for a very realistic environment to fly in. And of course, coupled with the realistic flight model and physics, it makes X-Plane a real contender in the flight simulation genre or niche. And the same thing goes for P3D, by the way. It's not far behind in terms, again, the flight model in P3D, by the way, is very similar or exactly the same as Microsoft Flight Simulator. They both use lookup tables, and it's the framework, the underlying framework that they use. So X-Plane excels because they use blade element theory, and that is why X-Plane excels in the flight model. But having said this, there are some excellent add-ons in P3D that would give you the same results in X-Plane. For example, the A2A simulation fleet of aircraft, the PMDGs of the world, those are definitely very well-made aircraft for P3D. All right, so here we came to a final stop, and we are going to set our parking brake. Parking brake is set. We're going to turn off the avionics, and we're going to turn off the lights. And mixture is off. And finally, battery and alternator, and the switch is there. And of course, we can also set the here the equipment, control lock, and wheel chocks. There we go. All right, so P3D is again looking very good. I think if I were to look at, again, you can see that the 3D models are not as good as Microsoft Flight Simulator, but they are slightly better than X-Plane. So you can see the movement of this guy here is slightly better. Let's, by the way, do one thing I want to show you guys is I want to show you nighttime. Let's see here if I can go here. All right, so let's change the time. I think it's all right. So let's say no. Let me see what I can do. All right. I think it's because I have chase plane. I cannot go to. All right. What we can do is this chase plane? Yeah, that's the chase plane camera. Okay. All right, let's see here. Okay, and you can see the sky colors. They're pretty good. This is apply. Yes. All right. So I want to show you the night lighting in P3D, and it's probably the worst of all three simulators. So it is extremely unrealistic in my view. But let's take a look together, and we'll decide together, and you guys can tell me what you think. All right. So you can see, again, volumetric lights. I've got dynamic lighting enabled. And if we go here, this is what the lights look like in P3D. Not bad, but not very realistic in my view. You can see the street lights. By the way, you can change them in the settings now, and we'll take a look at the settings in a minute. But you can see that while they are acceptable, they're not very realistic, and they don't look as good as X-Plane and Microsoft Flight Simulator, without a doubt. You can see the sky colors. One of the things I miss seeing in X-Plane is seeing the stars at night, which is, again, simulated in P3D. But the overall night environment in P3D is not that great in my view, and that's something they definitely need to work on. Is P3D for Is it for beginners? No, it's not for beginners. I will tell you this much. And it offers some very sophisticated and complex add-ons in terms of system simulations, such as PMDG. Of course, you've got the A2A, and you've got other aircraft. Airsoft is acceptable. You know, they've got some good aircraft, such as the Airsoft A330 and A320 and 19 as well. I mean, they give you good appreciation of how an Airbus operates. You've got the quality wings, Boeing 787, which is, to date, the very best simulation of a 787. It's not steady level, I don't think, but it's pretty good. And of course, you've got the, I can't recall the name of the guys who make the MD-80. Can't recall the name. But yeah, but they've got some excellent add-ons in P3D. Some are study level add-ons that will really bring you know, a lot of immersion and a lot of appreciation for aviation as well. So if you are a beginner, then Microsoft Flight Simulator is probably the best option for you, and it offers the best value for money in my view. If you are more of a serious flight simmer, or you're looking to learn about, you know, flying real aircraft, or getting your training, or getting your certification, especially for GA aircraft, I highly recommend X-Plane out of the box. I think it is a great training tool. If you are somewhere in between, you want, you know, a little bit of both worlds, maybe P3D offers that alternative, because P3D, again, can be used and is used by some companies also for real-world training. So, and remember, folks, P3D is made by Lockheed Martin, and Lockheed Martin is a big name in the aviation world. So, yeah, I don't agree necessarily with their recent practice of just releasing, you know, new versions of P3D and charging full price for it and offering no discounts. And then they came up with this new version at the time Microsoft Flight Simulator was about to release, and that's, it remains very controversial as to, you know, what they've done there, and a lot of people got pissed off. Personally, I see it as, you know, that's their business model, and I'm a very tolerant guy, all in all. So I am fine with whatever businesses do, and it remains the consumer's choice whether you want to make that investment or not. And if so you decide to do it, then you really can't complain. And if you don't want to do it, that's your choice, but you still can't complain because you haven't really squandered your money, at least from your perspective, right? So yeah, so from let's go ahead and take a look at the menu now. This is the in-game menu, but what's very interesting is P3D's got a lot of stuff under these menus, okay? And you know, virtual reality, tools, sim director, development menu. The sim director is a, you know, it requires a video on its own. It's got multiplayer. It's not as sophisticated and well polished as Microsoft Flight Simulator, but it's got one. Analysis is good for instant replay. It doesn't work very well. By the way, the replay system in X-Plane is by far the best out there. Ships out of the box, very easy to use, very intuitive, and you can set, you know, different views. Replay system in P3D is acceptable, and there is no replay system in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and whatever add-ons are there to do it, they do it quite well. But in my view, it should ship out of the box with the sim. You shouldn't have to go and you know, get an add-on for it. But there are some payware and freeware add-ons for a replay system in Microsoft Flight Simulator, where there is a built-in replay system for both X-Plane and P3D, and the one in X-Plane is much better. Now, if we go to the options, there's again a lot of different options, but we're going to go to the graphics tab because I think a lot of you guys are probably interested to see my settings. Here, the settings are slightly different. I've got this on XSSAA Ultra for resolution, but it doesn't matter if I put it on 2K because I have a 2K display. Anisotropic filtering 16, dynamic texture streaming is turned off. VSync is off, and target frame rate unlimited. And then if we go to the world, now this setting here gives me about 35 to 40 frames in the 777 PMDG at London Heathrow. So I'm very happy with those settings. I think it's a good compromise between, you know, performance and visual quality. So I keep it, this what really works for me. In terms of the lighting, shadow quality is one notch down, and I've got this setting here. The shadow distance is ultra. Excuse me. Setting up your controls in P3D is kind of like Microsoft Flight Simulator. Not the easiest thing in the world. If, you know, P3D does not detect it automatically as you connect it, then you're going to go through some agony of setting things up. And I've had this agony for my J rudder controls, but all the other controls were pretty much plug and play. And, you know, you kind of go there to, you know, to change what they do or tweak the behaviors to your locking and preference. Control, again, the calibration. I feel this part, configuring the sim, is a lot more intuitive in X-Plane than Microsoft Flight Simulator and P3D. But again, it's very visual in MSFS and very visual in X-Plane, whereas here it's kind of, you know, just textual menus, and it makes it very difficult, really, for somebody who's just starting to set things to the way they prefer. So, and there are, by the way, a lot of different things. Traffic, again, you see the traffic, and I'm using Just Flight AI traffic. Realism, again, you can see everything is set. Again, you do have some control over the flight model, the crashes, all that good stuff to enhance your experience and bring more realism to your experience in P3D. So, folks, I know that I have not, I know that I haven't really paid too much attention to the chat, and I do apologize for that, but I just really wanted to give you guys the full experience in all three simulators today, and the choice is, of course, totally yours, but I would definitely recommend beginners to take a look at Microsoft Flight Simulator for the reasons I've stated. I would recommend X-Plane 11 for advanced users, and I would also recommend P3D for advanced users. Now, if you are very particular about physics, flight physics, in a GA aircraft, for example, definitely go for X-Plane. If not, if you're looking for the airliners, X-Plane and P3D are pretty much the same, I would say. That is my honest opinion. And I'm trying to keep all my bias out of this and just say and state what I have witnessed and experienced over the past 3 weeks, having flown in P3D, in X-Plane, and Microsoft Flight Simulator, doing flights in both GA aircraft as well as airliners. And that is my honest opinion about P3D version 5.2, X-Plane 11.55, that's the version that we've used in our test today or stream, and the latest version of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Well, this is the finale. This brings us to really the close of this stream, the end of the stream. I hope that this was an insightful and useful stream for you guys. And if you'd like me to conduct more, comparisons of whether it's payware aircraft, sims, or add-ons or sceneries in this manner, meaning through a live stream, then please do leave your comments in the comment section of the video, and I will do more of this. If you prefer that I do more of recorded videos for those kind of comparisons, then also please let me know what your preference is. I want to thank you very much for being with me today on this Monday, and I hope that you guys stay safe and well. Until next time, please take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you all very soon. Thanks for tuning in, and bye-bye for now.